Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. We've got a lot to discuss. Let's just start off with Donald Trump in an interview this morning with Politico, saying that he would grade the current economy that's experienced by most Americans as an A+++++++, he says. Here, let's just play this clip.
Pretty good.
But I do want to talk about the economy, sir, here at home. And I wonder what grade you would give
A+.
Economy. A+.
Yeah, A++++++.
Well, it's interesting.
And then she
What
asked,
would you give it, Ben?
I'd probably give it about a D- to an F right now. I'd say
I don't know if I would give it an F or a D-. I'm thinking maybe a C- at best.
I mean, I think for most Americans who live paycheck to paycheck, if they're fortunate enough to have paycheck to paycheck, the feeling is an F. I give it a D- because if you include the stock market in people's 401ks, which has actually gone up despite most people not being invested in the market, you could at least say, look, it's objectively true. The market has gone up, but a lot of that's been because of AI inflating the valuations and deals that we're doing that undermine our long-term national security in order to pump up the price of stocks like NVIDIA. And just an example of that is Donald Trump posting yesterday that he will be giving China the H200 series of these GPUs, these semiconductor chips. And these H200 products are so highly classified, are so important to our national security interests in the United States that we just gave away, that Trump's own Department of Justice prosecuted people yesterday, the same day Trump made the announcement. People were prosecuted for selling these to China. Or selling them to a conduit, a middleman, to then give to China. And in the filing by the Department of Justice, they describe what a grave threat that poses to our national security interests, that it is a felony for people to give this to China. But then Donald Trump, just like China, you can have it. And Trump's giving it to China to encourage them to buy the soybeans and to allow the rare earth elements to flow back into the United States that they've restricted and that they're not purchasing when it comes to the soybeans because of Trump's trade war against the world, where China's outmaneuvered them. So now I guess Trump's policy was declare a trade war against the world. China stops buying the soybeans and cuts off rare earth elements. We then give China our highly classified H200 GPUs and technology. And what do we get? Oh,
we get to pay. We get to give $20 billion to our farmers in order to keep them going. Right? That's what we get. Ben, I got to just tell you, with an F, or a D-. I'm glad that I don't have you as my professor, because you're clearly a rough grader there. But I'm with you. I mean, this is definitely D-class material here. I actually have a little bit of knowledge in regarding these NVIDIA H200 chips and so on, and you're spot on. It is actually a crime. It is to the extent of almost treason to provide China with these highly classified, extremely technological chips that are used not just in AI, as they're trying to tell the American people, but on top of that, for our military guidance system, for the laser guidance systems that's used. The big problem that America is going to have, because Ben, once again, you're spot on, right? What did America get for this big trade? What, America's going to take 25% on these chips? Do you realize that the second you sell the Chinese one of these, do you think the Chinese give two shits about intellectual property? They do not. There is not a chance in the world that they will not reverse engineer, or at least try to reverse engineer, both the H100 and the H200 chip. It's what they do. And they'll figure out a way, at worst, to turn around and to make a slight modification, so in that way they don't end up in the international court for theft of intellectual property rights. But China doesn't believe in intellectual property rights, meaning after the first batch that gets sold to them, They will put their top scientists, and trust me when I tell you, their top scientists are pretty damn good. They will put them on there to reverse engineer this in order to start to create their own H100, H200 chip.
Yeah, in the Trump news cycle, that's just something that happens, and like people don't pay enough attention to it, and it's why we focus on it here at the outset of the show. Right, the same way Donald Trump put forward his national security strategy, which says it's official policy of the United States to basically harm the European Union, to prevent the expansion of the EU or the solidarity of the EU, and it's actually to prevent the permanent expansion and the perception of expansion and existence of NATO. In the official United States strategy, national strategy document, it literally looks like it could have been drafted by Putin. And it comes at the same time that the Financial Times has reported that over the past year or so, Putin was planning of how he was going to basically move these cargo containers into United States passenger planes and cargo planes and blow them up, and to try to create mass chaos and mass casualties worse than 9/11. And Donald Trump is rewarding Russia and treating Russia as, as the ally of the US, while Donald Trump's formal position about Europe is that Europe is in the sphere of influence of Russia. That's how it's described. Europe is in the sphere of influence of Russia. Russia takes that territory. Then Trump says the United States sphere of influence is the Western Hemisphere, and that there's a renewed Monroe Doctrine, as he frames it, such that Canada is a vassal state of the United States of America, and it belongs to the U.S., as does all of Central South America, Mexico, and part of the Trump invasion plan of Venezuela, is that belongs to us. The same way Putin says Ukraine belongs to him, and the same way China says Taiwan belongs to us. That's how the U.S. policy sees it. Spheres of influence.
Sure. So Ben, you're spot on when you say, how come nobody is talking about that article where Russia was contemplating on putting bombs on U.S. flights? I mean, my friends, do you realize that you're talking about government-sanctioned murder of Americans and other individuals from other countries? And yet nobody's talking about it. But what they are doing is they're treating, as you said, Russia like they are an ally, and treating all of our allies like they are the worst adversaries, like they are Russia or China or North Korea or Iran. I mean, this is completely out of control. We've really lost, not even that we've lost our way. We're completely in the wrong. We're not even in the right state. I mean, this is seriously out of control. And yet we're talking about now assisting Russia in terms of the complete and total annihilation of Ukraine, where how great was it when Zelensky turned around and said, I cannot even consider this 29 point or 28 point proposal. First of all, it's outside of my authority, and it's actually it's inhumane, right? To turn around and to say that I'm going to give up territory, I'm going to ignore the fact that land was stolen from us, give up our mineral rights, turn around and agree that NATO will never become, Ukraine will never become part of NATO, and the other 25 or so, 24 points, each one more devastating to the people of Ukraine, especially, as he said, to the memory of those Ukrainian soldiers and civilians who have died for their right to exist.
Yeah. Think about it, the way Donald Trump floods the zone with whatever diabolical thinking he has. Overturn the results of the 2020 election, say that January 6th was not what it was. the way, and this is a skill set that he has, but it's a bad one, and you have to stand up to him. He will throw everything at it. He will be relentless about it. And every single moment, that's the thing. And then he will get a bunch of stooges who will risk their lives and their career. And you know it, Cohen, more than anyone, and it's hard to get out of. Basically his own kamikazes, unless they can get out of it. And there's a price to pay when you get out of it. And they just push it. And it's a relentless fire hose. It doesn't matter. You look at Trump with the wildfires here in California, even though it's the most ridiculous thing to say that Newsom cared more about the smelt than putting out the fires, and he was focused on fish, and the reservoirs weren't full when they were full, and that Trump saved the day. Trump creates his scenario.
But meanwhile, they're holding back, Ben. They're holding back on the relief package that has been granted to California simply because California is a blue state and Gavin Newsom is trolling him.
You could think about this. Governor Newsom, the governor of the most populous state in the United States of America, the state that gives the most to the federal government and takes the least relative to what it gives, a state that would be the fourth largest GDP in the world if it was a country. The governor of that state takes a trip to Washington, D.C., across the country to meet with Donald Trump, to meet with the president of the United States. Donald Trump refuses to take the meeting. So then the governor says, okay, can I meet with the head of FEMA, whoever that is, because the last guy left, the guy before that? No. Can I meet with Kristi Noem? She makes a lot of propaganda videos as the governor of the largest state, most populous and wealthiest, who gives the most money to fund these things. Can I meet with Noem? No. Can I meet with the White House staffer or a FEMA staffer so that the governor's office can at least have a voice?
Wait, can I guess what they said?
Yeah.
No.
They said no. And then so Newsom did this great interview with Jack Cocciarella, and I played this interview. It was the morning video that I did where he was overlooking the White House and he was calling Donald Trump out. But the broader point I'm making there, though, and why I was talking about Zelensky and then moved there, is Trump's mind is made up. It is Ukraine belongs to Russia. That's it. So the question is how you get there. Right. So last week it was the 28-point peace plan, right, which is really a plan of surrender. This week it is Donbass. It's okay. Let's just ignore those points. Just give Russia all of Donbass. Now, Ukraine controls 30% of Donbass, and they and European intelligence estimate that it would take Russia another 4 years and over 1 million Russian soldiers' lives to be able, on a best case scenario, to get that 30%. So for Ukraine, why would they give up land that they control? That's their bargaining chip. Because the moment Ukraine gives Russia Donbass, which Russia can't conquer by force, Cohen, what do you think Russia does next? Do they go, great? Or do you think they use Donbass to go further west and eventually into Europe?
So they had this young lady who was part of the parliament in Ukraine on television, and she said what everybody else who has half a brain is saying, that Vladimir Putin did this years ago, right? I think it was 2014, when he turned around and he took part of Russia. We're talking about the Donbass region. Well, okay, they kick back, they shut up, they pretend that they are going to be compliant with whatever agreement has been reached. But no, what they're doing is they're restocking. Remember that 1 million Russian soldiers have already died on this battlefield. All right. They have already basically depleted their male population from like the age of 18 to in the 40s. All right. That's how crazy this is. Not only are they looking to replenish, but they're also looking to replenish their stockpile of armaments. Because let me be clear, Russia doesn't have the system, they don't have the money, they don't have the resources within which to keep producing the number of missiles and rockets and ammunition and guns that they currently need in order to beat Ukraine. What's amazing is that Ukraine, it's like that movie, what was it, like 200, right? Where 200 is fighting 100,000. These Ukrainians are fighting for their lives. They're fighting for their nation, and they're not going to go down lightly. You could blow up all the houses that you want. You can go ahead and attack their infrastructure. That's okay. The Ukrainians are strong people. They are determined. They want to be independent and not be under the thumb of Vladimir Putin and Russia. Plain and simple. And they will fight to the end. By the way, who am I most impressed with? Yes, I know. I'm sorry. The movie was 300. Apologies, right? Who am I most impressed with? Truth be told, Europe. Europe is now meeting with Zelensky, and unlike our president, they're treating him with the respect that he deserves. They're treating him like the president of a country that is in war, under attack from a hostile adversary. And let me tell you something. They get to him some of the necessary armaments. There's no doubt in my mind that at some point in time, Zelensky will do a full-on freaking offensive right into Red Square, right into Moscow, which is Vladimir Putin's, creme de la creme. It's his crown jewel. And right after that, they'll turn around and they'll go after St. Petersburg and all of the places that Vladimir Putin holds dear as a nationalist. That places that he holds dear, they will annihilate.
Well, here's the thing, too. Europe, in its own self-interest, sees the United States as no longer aligned with Europe, no longer aligned with NATO. And Europe, out of their own self-interest, they view that if they don't do this to help Ukraine, that in the next 2 to 3 years, there actually is. One may even suggest that right now there is a world war taking place that's not being called as such, with all of the wars and proxy fights taking place across the country in various regions. Perhaps it's not the way we think about it in World War I and World War II, but Europe is planning in its own mind, and people need to realize they are planning that if things keep going the way they are and U.S. continues to do what it does, that Europe is going to potentially be at war against Russia and the United States. And the U.S. is no longer viewed by Europe internally as an ally.
True.
And they no longer are viewed as really a part of NATO. Europe gives it lip service because they feel they have to at this point to at least try to keep the U.S. in a neutral posture. But if you look at the alignments taking place right now, we've never seen anything like this since right before World War I and then right before World War II. And Trump likes to always talk about, World War III if Biden. We are so close to that. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic and doomsday-esque, but that's truly, if you look at what's happening in the world, and it's why we cover this on the Midas Touch Network, and you don't see this covered elsewhere. I mean, just look at what's happening right now between Japan and China, where the new prime minister of Japan, Takaishi, recently said if China invades Taiwan, we as Japan will have to protect Taiwan because there's no U.S. help being offered.
Right.
To which the main ambassadors of China responded, we are going to cut the head off. We're going to behead the prime minister of Japan. Japan was then looking for the United States ambassador to summon the ambassador of China to cool things down. That's not what happened. Instead, what happened was Xi Jinping called Donald Trump, and Xi Jinping said, you need to call Japan and tell Prime Minister Takaishi to chill out. And that if you want to visit us in China, Donald, and you want us to buy those soybeans and release the rare earth elements, and they keep holding this over his head, you need to call Japan and tell them to shut up. So then Trump calls Japanese Prime Minister Takaishi and tells her, calm down, to which Prime Minister Takaishi and Japan knows, wow, we can't rely on the U.S. So what are they doing in Japan? The biggest military buildup right now in their history since pre-World War II, that's happening right now. A massive military buildup in Japan, a massive military buildup in Germany. You have Canada looking to now purchase its planes and its war weapons from Sweden and elsewhere and move away from the US. And the thing is, as you watch these alliances being formed, the US is kind of in no man's land, and they lost Europe and Canada and Australia because we're openly hostile with it. Trump's like begging Xi Jinping, and he's uplifting Putin, but the BRICS alliance is weakening the United States as the US moves away from its allies. It's the crazy.
But he doesn't see it that way. Trump does not see it this way. Let me enlighten, if I can, for 2 seconds, Ben. Stay with me because I want to see your reaction to this, if you would. I want to enlighten our brigaders on something. When something like this happens, he's not listening to someone who's logical, who is thoughtful in his words. I'm talking about you, Ben. He's listening to a group of acolytes and sycophants that are willing to tell him anything. So when somebody turns around and says to him, you realize that America has lost, not is losing, has lost its allies throughout Europe. That if we allow Russia to take Ukraine, next will be Poland. After Poland will be the Baltics, whereby Putin, while he's still living, is hell-bent on reforming the former Soviet Union with himself as Tsar Nicholas. Well, when you tell this to Trump, he'll turn around and tell you it's not true. He's more popular in Europe in his own mind, simply because, again, it's reinforced by these acolytes, where he was bold enough to say to Dasha, whatever her last name is, on that interview, that they call him Daddy Trump. He just received the FIFA Peace Prize. These are being regurgitated to him and repeated to him over and over and over, to the point that he's actually believing his own bullshit. And that, my friends, is where we come in. And that's where, again, I say it all the time. It's why I say Midas Touch Network needs to have not 5.5, 6 million. You need to have 20 million, 40 million, 50 million. Because I know it's a big number. Trust me, I understand numbers. But the reason it's so important is if you have any intention of ensuring that Daddy Trump and this administration get their asses handed to them, that there is a blue tsunami that wipes the red right off the map, you need to have one specific place where people can go to get information that is honest and truthful, instead of going to places that are fraught with misinformation, disinformation, malinformation all day long, within which to keep their narrative going for their viewers. That's what it's all about. I mean, state-sponsored media, with what's going on now between this Netflix and Warner and Paramount, all of this does not benefit. It does not inure to our benefit. And that's why we need to have a place to be united, a place for information. And Midas Touch Network, it's the place to go.
Look, I think that Europe is very late in the realizations that they're now making. And I still think that these European leaders are being too weak, although you may say, oh, well, what would you do in that situation, Ben, where you're running these countries and you have to deal with this all of a sudden about face of the United States becoming a fascist regime? And how do you balance the fact that there was a world order post-World War II created by the United States that in a flash was ripped away from you? But I think the best lesson, frankly, you know what I'm going to say, Cohen, of how you deal with Donald Trump in the Oval Office? To me, it's not even a close call. Mamdani. When Mamdani went into the Oval Office, he didn't sacrifice for a moment any of the things that he believed. He called Donald Trump a fascist to Donald Trump's face when he was asked about it. And he said, let's take a photo in front of FDR. And at no point did Mamdani look like he was begging Donald Trump for anything. And he said, where we have alignment, great. Where we don't, we're going to duke it out. And that's what's nothing's changed. I don't take back anything. You contrast that to NATO. And it was actually Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, who, as part of what he perceived as a joke, it's Donald Trump's daddy, Donald Trump's daddy. And when Trump sees somebody say that, or sees the European nations march into the Oval Office and bend to him or beg him or give him attention, Trump sees that as an affirmation of what he feels about Europe, that it's weakness. And the only way to get respect or to fight back is you have to put it on the line. Even if that means your country in Europe can face economic pain by the disentanglement of the world order. Newsflash, the world order is disentangling whether you beg Donald Trump or not. So the question is how do you deal with it? Because all you're doing is putting off the inevitable where things will be worse versus if you confront it. So
but
to
they
me,
are dealing with it, Ben. That's the difference. Canada, as an example, they're not selling their soft lumber to the United States because of taxes. They're selling it elsewhere. The United States slapped on a rolled steel tariff or a steel tariff. What are they doing? They're selling it elsewhere. What happened, for example, when Trump screwed up our farmers? And China needs to get their soy somewhere. They went to Argentina, who we just bailed out. So Argentina is selling now to China soy using our money. I mean, the whole thing is batshit crazy. So the problem is countries like Canada, countries like England and Italy and France and just all the NATO countries and others that we considered our close friends, our allies. What are they doing? They're now looking for alternate routes in order to obtain the products that they need. And I want to be clear about something. The United States doesn't really manufacture too much of anything. Yeah, we manufacture cars. They don't even want our cars. Our cars are too big for their roads. You ever see an American car in Italy? Good luck making a left turn to go down a street that was lucky that a horse can get through. That's why the European cars are thinner than the American cars, why they're smaller. Good luck selling a Ford F-150 anywhere in Europe. They don't want it. That's the whole point. We don't really manufacture shit here. And for whatever the reason, this entire group of sycophant idiots are all sitting there telling you, hey, everybody wants our products. Everyone wants them. Everybody wants the products. We don't make shit. All right. In fact, we don't even want to make it because we can't compete with countries like China, all right, who pay $2 or $1 an hour to their employees. Americans want cheap goods and we sell other things. And what will happen? They will now go ahead and they will start to invest as a group. The way the United States and Israel has certain relationships, they will then form their own relationships. They will come up with their own military might. And ultimately, who knows, maybe it'll even surpass the United States, which then puts us completely in the doghouse. All thanks to this administration.
Let's take our first quick break of the show. A reminder, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel here. You may think you're subscribed, but you may not actually be subscribed because your algorithm may send you this stuff. Just double check that you're subscribed and click subscribe. And then subscribe to Cohen's YouTube channel because the Michael Cohen Show YouTube channel, it's about 24,000 subscribers away from 500,000.
2,400.
2,400. Well, just, let's
What's a zero amongst friends?
What's
12 trillion, 20 trillion, 9 billion gajillion.
It's actually 2,000 percentage points less than what I just said. So, and I'm joking there. So just make sure you hit subscribe on Cohen's. Let's get Cohen 500,000 subscribers. That'll be great if we can get that this week. Another reminder, subscribe to the Mea Culpa audio podcast, wherever you get your audio podcasts, subscribe there. And subscribe to his Substack, the Michael Cohen Substack. Let's take our first and only break of the show. We'll be right back with much more to discuss.
Cold nights, cozy blankets, and souls out of office gummies. It's my new favorite routine. Throw on Die Hard for the 150th time, grab a gummy, and suddenly the world stops yelling at me. Look, I've tried a lot of ways to unwind. Some people, they just pour another glass of wine. Others, they scroll or doom scroll into oblivion. Me, I take Soul. Their out-of-office gummies, they hit the sweet spot, just enough buzz to relax without turning your evening into a hangover horror story. I felt calmer, sharper, and shockingly productive, like I was winning at life again. Soul is a wellness brand that believes feeling good should be fun and easy. Their gummies boost your mood, relax your mind, and even make creativity show up uninvited. From a microdose of 1.5 milligram to a full 15 milligram gummy for a more elevated experience, you control the vibe. There's no drama, no regret, no calories screaming at you. And here's a twist. If gummies aren't your thing, check out their new out-of-office beverage, alcohol-free, smooth, and socially acceptable at the awkward office party that you promised yourself you'd survive. Everything Soul makes is vegan, gluten-free, low in sugar, federally legal, and grown right here in the USA. I mean, it's like self-care got upgraded to luxury mode without the sticker shock. So bring on the holiday cheer and treat yourself or someone you love to Soul this season. And right now, Soul is offering my audience 30% off. That's 30% off your entire order. So go right now to getsoul.com. That's GETSOUL.com and use code BEAT, B-E-A-T. That's getsoul.com, promo code BEAT for 30% off. Go now. You ever try launching a podcast with zero experience? Well, let me tell you something. It's like being tossed into a cage match with a grizzly bear, blindfolded, wearing clown shoes. Because when I started Political Beatdown with Ben, I thought, come on, man, how hard can this be? Script writing, logos, production schedules, ad deals, and don't even get me started on the tech setup. I mean, I feel like I was decoding a damn matrix. Now, if only I had Shopify when I launched this beast. Shopify is the platform behind millions of businesses across the globe, responsible for a whopping 10%. You hear that? 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. And my friends, that's not hype. That's fact. From big names like Mattel and Gymshark to folks just getting their hustle off the ground, Shopify's got their back. I mean, you want a gorgeous online store? Shopify's got hundreds of sleek, ready-to-go templates that make you look like a design god. AI tools? Yeah, they've got those too. Writing your podcast descriptions, jazzing up your images, maybe even making you sound smarter than you are. I mean, not naming names. And you need a marketing squad? Shopify's built-in tools let you hit email, Instagram, TikTok, wherever your customers are scrolling or doom scrolling. And listen, Shopify handles it all. Inventory, returns, international shipping. I mean, they are the ride or die business partner that you never knew you needed. So if you got a big idea or even a little one and you're ready to turn that dream into a reality, head over to shopify.com/beat. That's shopify.com/beat to start your $1 per month trial today. That's Shopify, shopify.com/beat.
Welcome to Political Beatdown. We're back in action after that great ad read by Michael Cohen. Great ad reads there, Cohen.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate Shopify and Soul.
Let's want to show some other clips from this morning quickly. Let's talk about when Donald Trump was pressed by I'm not sure pressed is the right word, asked gently by the reporter with actually very little pushback. So what do you make of people heading into this holiday season who aren't able to spend as much and see the higher prices? Trump says, stop being dramatic. Here, play this clip. If we got it. Do we got it or do we not have it, Jeremy? Yeah, maybe you.
To the people, not to the insurance
So right now,
companies.
people are buying their holiday presents. They're planning.
Look, don't be dramatic.
No.
Don't be dramatic.
They're planning their
what I
budgets for
want to
next
do.
year,
Here's what I
Mr.
want.
President.
I know, and what I want to do.
Don't be dramatic. Don't be dramatic, Cohen.
Well, nothing. I mean, nothing like being dramatic when you end up calling 911 for an ambulance to take you because you're having chest pains or maybe a little kidney stone or God knows what else it could potentially be. And unfortunately, they turn around and they tell you you're going to need to sign over here because you don't have insurance. And then ultimately what happens? Your whole life gets turned upside down. You know, most people in this country don't have clearly enough money put off to the side in order to protect themselves from some form of catastrophic health issue. But don't be dramatic, Dasha. No, 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 no. Don't you dare be dramatic, because, you know, he is the affordability president, and everybody under this administration will have the ability to buy their own insurance. By the way, it's with the same money that he's promised everybody you were going to be receiving for Christmas, because we're taking in so much money from all of these idiot foreign countries that are paying us to do business that schmucks like Joe Biden and Barack Obama and every other president before him just did not understand. And that allowed our country to be driven into hell by all these other countries. Truly amazing, isn't it?
You know, it still is very hard for me to believe, you know, and it just goes to partisanship. It goes to what people are feeling. I don't know. I mean, Cohen, when you hear that, you know, like Trump's approval rating, depending on which poll you use, is anywhere from 37% to about 42% approval, which is very low. But like, you'd think about the 37 to 42% of people who hear him saying, don't be dramatic, you know, and it's just, you think about it, like what's going on in Russia right now, where the economy's horrible. And people are doing really bad, and people live in these buildings without air conditioning in freezing cold weather, and their sons are being sent as basically fire fodder in Ukraine, getting killed. I mean, whether it's 1 million deaths or whatever, you know, the economy of Russia is struggling. You see these gas lines in Russia for people just to get basic necessities. Sometimes you see these speeches and it's people like freezing, you know, next to each other, shoulder to shoulder, but they've been trained or brainwashed to believe that the peanuts and scraps that they have from their leader, Putin, is what they deserve. And that there's this broader mission of denazification, which is, we all know, is BS, or whatever these pretexts are for this greater Russia nationalism, that they look. Putin's poll numbers are all made up. The elections there are all rigged. We know that. But the fact that people go along and about their days tells you about the human condition, because the economy there is total trash. And what this regime wants Americans to feel is that their life and their existence is trash. They want to dangle just around the corner. There may be these riches, whether it's a Doge dividend check, a tariff rebate check, replacing your insurance with a check for $2,000, and that's going to be better, that actually prescription drugs are going to go down 1,700%, which is, it's all right around the corner. Don't you worry. And the human condition can be molded to accept breadcrumbs and to accept what Trump is trying to do. And that's the tension that we have. 37 to 41% approval, while he's telling people don't be dramatic, while he's quite literally screwing people's lives. I mean, job losses this year, job losses.
60% of this country.
60% since last.
60% of this country is also saying that they don't believe a single word that the president is saying right now as it relates to the economy. I want you all to think about that. 60%. Now, of that remaining 40% of, I would call them dopes, that it should be 100%, because you know that what he's saying, and it's not that I'm telling you or Ben's telling you and you got to say, well, who's telling the truth? Is it Cohen? Is it Trump? Is it Meiselas? Is it Ben, saying it, Trump, whatever? No. You know it because you reach into your pocket every time you go to the supermarket. The market, that word that nobody uses anymore, along with groceries. Nobody uses those words anymore. They're old-fashioned words. Sure. Well, I go to the grocery store and I buy my groceries. So let me be crystal clear. I know how much more I'm paying for a bag of groceries right now than I did 10 months ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I know every time I go to buy something at the store or I order something online, I know how much more I'm paying. And so does everybody. I mean, it's the one thing that none of us are ignorant to, and that is our own finances. So when 60% say they don't believe a goddamn thing he's saying or his people is saying as it relates to the economy, that's a fact. So now let's just quickly break down the remaining 40%. 23% say that they somewhat believe what he's saying every now and then, not all of it, but they don't disregard everything. All right. And then 13% turn around and say they believe every single thing that comes out of Trump's mouth, no matter what. Those are the numbers. Those are actual statistics and numbers, not by one pollster, but by a multitude that all are basically plus or minus 2%. That's a serious number. But again, I personally am not happy with 60% of the people complaining about the truth being told to them regarding the economy. It should be 80%. And you know what? Maybe then you'll start to see Republican members of Congress step up, knowing that they're going to get fucking shellacked during the midterms. That's what we need.
One of the things we'll be watching tonight, or in just a few hours on the East Coast, is the results of the Miami mayor's race. It could be the first time a Democrat wins there in about 30 years. The Democrats projected or expected to be in the lead as of now. We'll wait until we see the results actually come in. But that's something that I want to be focused on as well. It's not getting enough attention. That's a big data point right there, because Miami, South Florida, and Florida in general turned ruby red from blue. And, you know, will that be having a shift back? Let me show you what Sean from the Real World Road Rules Challenge and what he's been saying. So, you know, Sean Duffy, the transportation secretary. So he's been out and about saying that people need to dress better on airplanes. And that's been a main focus. People need to dress up and wear suits to the airplanes. And someone asked him, he held this weird press conference at
Reagan National.
Yeah. And he was like, you know, what we should be doing here in the airport is we need pull-up bars, and we should be doing workouts in the airport. And people are like, what, dude, what weird shit is this? Like, we're doing pull-up bars? So he got asked a question though, which is, okay, well, what are you going to do to lower costs at the airports? Like, do you have an affordability plan the way Pete Buttigieg was very focused on consumer protections that airplane companies, airliners didn't like, because they were very consumer friendly and the airliners thought we can't give these types of refunds, but that was the priority of Buttigieg. So what's your plan, Duffy? Surely with affordability being the biggest issue, like you have a plan, right? Here, play this clip.
So the question is lowering the cost of food in airports, and again, it's interesting. It's market demand and supply. They have people, pretty tightly contained, and there's not a lot of options. And so I don't have a plan to reduce costs. What I am trying to do is provide healthier options for people. And again, who doesn't love a greasy burger at the airport? I know I do.
Okay, time out. This guy could be the stupidest human being that I've ever met in my entire life. And that's a hell of a statement to make based upon the stupidity we're seeing from morons like Kristi Noem, her pet project there, Corey Lewandowski, or Pete Hegseth, or any of the other ones that are now gracing, right, the cabinet table. But this idiot, first of all, it's a limited space with a limited number of companies that are selling food. I don't know. Maybe I'm out of my mind because I live in New York. Maybe because I go to JFK Airport, which is huge. Or maybe I go to New Jersey, right? To New Jersey Airport over there. Or maybe even LaGuardia. But the second you walk in, if there's not 15 different food vendors there, all selling food, how about this? Maybe charge them less. So in that way, they send savings along to the consumer. You go there, as I did when I was traveling down to Florida to see my folks. I got a cup of coffee, a small black coffee, a bagel with some cream cheese on it, and then I got myself a muffin to take on the airplane in case I felt like I got hungry. It's like $19. And you turn around and you say, wait, for a cup of coffee, for a bagel, and for a muffin? Sure. It's very simple. Very, very simple. I'm one person. What if you're traveling with you, your wife, and your 2 kids? You're talking about like $80? Seriously? And what he wants to do instead is spend money so that some guy or a girl who decides to start working out and schwitzing like a pig sits next to you and stinks? Or now you're going to what? Have to also build showers, right? Because that's what everybody wants. I want to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning to be on a 7:30 flight to Florida, and I want to be able to get my steps in. I want to be able to do a workout so that the person sitting next to me, right, can turn around and say, you're kind of like sweaty and all. Maybe you could sit someplace else. I mean, that just makes perfect sense. And so, Sean Duffy, you fucking idiot. You idiot. Making stupid ass comments like that so you can show off that you can do what? 10 pull-ups or 7 pull-ups, whatever, next to the other idiot, RFK Jr. Honestly, it's time you shut the hell up. It's time you start thinking before you say stupid things. You have all day long to prepare for this press conference. This didn't just pop up simply because you showed up there. This thing was planned. So maybe you ought to think twice before you open up your mouth. And for being such a stupid asshole, fuck you.
We've talked about the things that this regime does,
Dumb.
right? I mean, often it's what they inflict upon people, pain, suffering, what they take away from people. But when you think about the things that they do, where they sit around a room and they're like, what do we want to produce? Like, what's our affirmative ideas, right? One of them is nursing. And you'd be thinking, you mean like helping the nursing profession? No, it's removing the professional degree designation from nursing. It's like, let's pick on our heroes, the nurses, and screw them over. And someone's like, yeah, good idea. Let's push that forward. And then someone's like, well, why don't we start promoting like nooses and swastikas and other racist symbols in the Coast Guard? So like, yeah, let's do that. What's really missing in the airport?
Yeah,
Cohen?
cigarettes. Smoking.
What's really missing is someone could be smoking while doing push-ups or while doing pull-ups. I've never even conceived of this idea.
Bring back your dirty water, dog, Ben.
Well, the
That's
reality
what we need
is,
to
though,
do.
And to your point, it's like, do they listen to the words that they're saying? Is there any thought in it? Because the whole point of this press conference, as deranged as it was to promote this idea of like doing workouts and pull-ups, which is the craziest concept in an airport. So let me just show you that message first, because this is what they want. This is what they did this for, is we need more pull-up bars in airports. Like, who right now is saying that's what we need? This regime. Here, play this clip.
Pretty wide open on what airports want to ask for a grant, but it might be, I want to expand the play areas for kids. I want additional nursing pods for nursing mothers. Maybe I want a workout area where people might get some blood flow and doing some pull-ups or some step-ups in the airport. But it could be any range of things. Maybe you want to work, I know this is TSA, but we're going to help on this as well. Maybe you want to have a different lane for families to get through TSA. How can we make the experience better as you come through an airport? $1 billion is going to go to that.
Maybe we should bring back prostitution and allow these massage parlors to be opened up or right next to every single Starbucks in an airport. Because, right, who doesn't want a tug and rub when you're sitting there at 7 o'clock in the morning waiting for a delayed flight? How stupid is this idiot, right? I mean, Yes, it's exactly what I want. I want a CrossFit center in every city. Why not some wall climbing? So maybe people can fall off the wall, break an arm and a leg, and therefore you now have the hospital there. But of course, you don't have now insurance for it, so you're going to have to pay in cash, which means that the state or the government can make more money because now you have to have the doctors there, and you have to pay with your credit card and with cash on the spot. Otherwise, you could take your broken limb and you could go onto your airplane and keep going. I mean, if this is not the stupidest press conference, I cannot wait for Saturday Night Live to end up doing one of their shticks on this, or South Park, because this one really goes to show you exactly what Ben is saying. They spin a wheel of stupidity and they come up with ideas.
Versus the real things that former President Biden did that was actually legislated, that became law, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Infrastructure Act. When you all go to your airports right now, you probably do see that there's construction happening across the country at airports. And a lot of that comes from the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Act. Now, imagine if the time and effort Donald Trump and this regime spent doing stupid stuff and dangerous stuff and deadly stuff and hurting people, that if Trump wanted to be like, I'm a great builder, imagine if he rallied people so that all of those projects that are taking place, the red tape goes away and those can get done quicker. And all of a sudden we start seeing an acceleration of those programs. Imagine if rather than attacking USAID and probably killing tens of thousands or potentially even millions of people with Doge and what Elon Musk and Trump did when they precipitously just started removing critical aid and functions. I don't think we'll ever truly know the tally of how many people died as a result. But imagine if the ingenuity of these potential billionaires or billionaires was actually spent building affordable homes everywhere. And when you were driving now, rather than seeing ICE agents and Border Patrol agents making people disappear, $200 billion that just went to ICE and Border Patrol, or $900 billion that's in this National Defense Authorization Act, went to building homes. And so you start driving and those mini homes that are like 800 square feet, but have all the great accommodations, are now housing people, and people are able to live with dignified lives. And there are less homeless people on the street, and the unhoused community is being helped. Like, imagine if this money was invested in mental health. Like, the money is there, and it's just being used to prop up AI and data centers and Palantir, and taking away our data and making us live in a police state and a militarized state. But it's not it's not a complicated formula. If we wanted to move from Obamacare, Affordable Care Act subsidies to single payer Medicare for all, the money exists. It's just a matter of it's being used by a regime to inflict pain and harm people and blow things up, versus investing in the people. And to me, that's an issue that needs to be addressed the right way, and it needs to be, and it's a winning message. And anybody to me who shies away from that message and doesn't deliver on that message and uses it as just a way to get elected, but doesn't deliver, does so at their own peril. You listen to what the people are saying. That's what people want. People want Medicare for all. People want healthcare free, or very, very cheap. They want education. They want to be able to work a job and then have a home and not worry, am I going to be able to afford next month's mortgage or be able to pay my rent? I'm working a job, damn it. And why? And look, CEOs should make a lot of money, and I get it. I'm not against CEOs and entrepreneurs making money, but also I want them to treat workers with dignity, because it's ridiculous where someone's making $5,000. Yeah, I want someone to have a fair wage,
and everybody can live with honor and decency.
Exactly.
And achieve the American dream, instead of having to go to the airport, husband, wife, and their 2 kids, and have to take out a mortgage on the house to buy a bagel.
And that's, to me, it's attainable, it's achievable. Trump's been able to sense the desperation on people, but exploit it and lie to them and turn tens of millions of Americans into his mark. But what the people are feeling and what they want is real. And people need to see it, and they need to listen better and not just talk. They need to listen and hear what people are going through. People are terrified about what AI is going to do to their future job prospects. People are really worried about not being able to afford a home, not even being able to afford rent. Older generations have their children living with them, and they want to see their kids be able to start the lives that they were able to start, when they were their age. And kids are living with their parents into their 40s now, or late 30s, if that. And because there's nowhere else to go and nowhere else to live, if their parents are lucky enough to have a home. And we don't want to be gaslit into thinking, oh my God, this is great. It's not. It's not great. It's very bad. The situation in our country is just getting worse by the day, and internationally it is. But we're just going to deliver the information. I think the biggest skill we have here, Cohen, on this network is we listen to people. We listen to what they're saying, and we respond to that. And we feel the same way that you all feel. So we're just trying to do our best to get the truth out. So any final words, Cohen, before we go?
I don't. I'm just nauseated by, I can't imagine, Ben, Pete Buttigieg, literally going to an airport, a guy who's turning around and saying, no, hold on. You pay $500 for your flight. You're permitted, it's $250 each way. You deserve to take off on time and to land on time. And if in fact that you don't, that's on the airline. And so they're going to have to pay you for your time, for your inconvenience. That's a Pete Buttigieg, Joe Biden idea that benefits all Americans. The fact that you had these two idiots, literally, and shame on the media for even showing up. The second this asshole takes off his tie and starts doing chin-ups, that's when I would have turned around and I would have said, and now we're going to go to Michael Cohen regarding this press. Yeah, this is about the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. We're not going to waste your time with idiot number one and idiot number two. And so with that, we apologize for wasting your time. And if in fact that you're paying for this service, we're going to rebate you $1, right? Or something like that. This is so screwed up. The fact that they're able to get the press there to watch them show off, to do chin-ups or pull-ups or whatever else that they're doing, all to prove a point that there is pointless. Again, I'm so lost at this entire group of morons. I mean, it's spectacular.
I want to remind everybody to hit subscribe here. Help us get to 6 million subscribers. You may think you're subscribed, but you may not actually be subscribed. So double check, because sometimes the algorithm just sends you these and you search us, but you're not actually subscribed. So check that. Same thing with Cohen's channel. Search at The Michael Cohen Show. They're 2,400 subscribers away there, not 24,000, 2,400 away from hitting 500,000 subscribers. That's such an incredible accomplishment. And so please hit subscribe there. Let's get that channel to 500,000 subscribers. Go check out the Mea Culpa audio podcast, wherever audio podcasts are available. Check that out right now. Michael Cohen gets some of the best guests, and you get to hear a lot of Cohen's great interviews. And he's a great interviewer and brings out a lot of information from people that you don't really get to hear anywhere else. And subscribe to Michael Cohen's Substack. It's the Michael Cohen Substack. Check that out as well. Thanks everybody for watching Political Beatdown. Thank you as always, and we'll see you next time. Shout out Beatdown Brigaders and shout out Midas Mighty.
Boom.